Speaker, on the first reading of this bill, to talk a little bit about some of the comments from the opposition. In particular, to touch on some of the comments from the last Speaker, Grant Robertson. Look, there seems to be some sort of fear and loathing of probably not reading of the bill. The first actual part of this bill, the first prime aspect they're looking at, is actually for the Productivity Commission to hold inquiries and report to the referring ministers about productivity-related matters that are referred to it. That actually is far broader than what Australia has, far broader. What that means is pretty much a minister can refer anything it wants to the Productivity Commission to understand anything it wants. And sure, there are a whole lot of other regulatory worries and concerns that flow from it. Equally, Mr Speaker, there has been some paranoia from the Greens about the ability of ministers to control what that may be. What it does, it allows freedom for ministers to refer to the Commission to undertake independent analysis. And I think actually that's a good thing. When you actually look at it relative to the Australian rules, there allows a lot more freedom for the independent commissioners to do things. And thirdly, well, there's a fear about the resourcing. Well, Mr Speaker, this commission gets about $5 million a year. There's 29 people. That's nearly $200,000 a person. I think anyone out there who's paying taxes, the butchers and the plumbers in my part of New Zealand and Christchurch, would be thinking that's a lot of money to be given to somebody to answer questions. That's $200,000 a year to 30-odd people to undertake some good analysis on what are the big questions and issues for New Zealand. And I think that's probably more than enough resources to ask for from the hard-working taxpayers of New Zealand, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, we talked a bit about earlier along what this is all about. This is about New Zealand working not harder. We're the hardest working country in the world. We work more hours than any other place. It's about New Zealanders working smarter and getting more out of less in terms of getting more capital and particularly more brain power. We had some fear from David Parker talking about one of the reasons why we made some changes in terms of our tax system. That's because to give more flexibility to employers to invest in things they see fit, not necessarily machines, but minds. Because, Mr Speaker, you can't depreciate a mind, but you can, through the tax system being a tax rate being lower, there's a greater incentive to invest in human resources rather than capital resources. And we think that's a good thing, to give the choices to employers to do things that are right. Mr Speaker, the Productivity Commission in Australia has done some great work, and I've read a number of their reports, particularly the work they've done on energy and on population, and I think they're actually some good pieces of analysis, and I actually think that if we can get the same level of analysis out of the work that might come out of this commission in New Zealand, I think that'll be a neat thing for New Zealand, and we'll be able to have some very highly useful bits of particularly social policy analysis. I just want to segue a bit. I had the fortune to study at the University of Canterbury, and they've just set up a new economics lab there which specialises in exactly this issue. And they're very much looking forward to working with this Productivity Commission about answering some of the big social policy questions that exist in New Zealand. And I think that what we've set up here is a good step in the right direction to working with all those entities and agencies that do this sort of work in New Zealand. It's a bit disparate, bringing them together to a position where they can actually undertake more detailed, in-depth analysis of those big question issues that New Zealand is facing over the next 20 years or more. And unlike Mr Parker and my colleague Mr Carter, I actually look forward to being here in 2025. I'm young enough to be able to say that, whereas we've heard from the opposition that they don't even want to be here in 2025. So, look, if we can get this commission up and running, answer those big questions, I think that would be a great thing. And I look forward to sitting here on the government benches in 2025, looking at some of the great analysis the commission has done and putting it in place for a John Key-led government for another 15 years. Thanks very much.
Members, the time for this debate has concluded. The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Contrary will say no. The ayes have it. Party vote. I'll ask the clerk to conduct a party vote.
New Zealand National.
58 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
43 votes in favour.
Green Party.
9 votes opposed.
ACT New Zealand.
5 in favour.
Māori Party.
Irimanga Pōti Tautoko.
Just one moment. We need to put on our translation. My apologies to the member. Just one moment. We just need to connect.
5 in favour.
No, we'll just get it correct. Thank you.
There's a lot of it about.
Now, would the member like to cast his vote again, please?
5 votes in favour.
Progressive.
1 vote in favour.
United Future.
1 vote in favour.
Members, the ayes are 113, the noes are 9. The motion is agreed to.
New Zealand Productivity Commission Bill, first reading.
The Honourable John Carter.
Speaker, I move that the New Zealand Productivity Commission Bill be referred to the Commerce Select Committee for consideration, and that the committee report finally to the House on or before the 22nd of November 2010, and that the committee have the authority to meet at any time while the House is sitting, except during oral questions and during any evening on a day on which there has been a sitting of the House, and on a Friday in a week in which there has been a sitting of the House, despite Standing Orders 187 and 191B and C.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. The ayes have it. I call on Government Order of the Day number 3.
Infrastructure Bill, committee stage continued.
Members, I need to appoint a temporary speaker under Standing Order 33 and have asked Phil Twyford